Welcome to this new automotive news video for Tuesday, May 26, 2026. Today we're going to talk about Ferrari, which has just unveiled both the worst Ferrari in history and also one of the worst electric cars of all time. Analyze Renault abandoning its successful formula. Discuss a Stellantis brand making a surprising comeback. Cover another setback for European electric car production. These are the topics of this video, which will be released a little earlier than usual for the simple reason that later today there should normally be a second video. The YouTube algorithm tends to penalize channels in terms of visibility when they suddenly change their usual video publishing times. That's why today, in particular, I'm counting on you to give this video as many likes as possible, to subscribe for the next ones, to boost it. It's really the most important thing for the algorithm, to give my channel visibility, and to leave a comment where you share your opinion about today's news, especially regarding the Ferrari topic. What do you think? Hasn't Ferrari lost its mind a little bit? Because in fact, last night Ferrari revealed the Ferrari Luce, or the Ferrari Luce, if you pronounce it the French way. It's Ferrari's first fully electric car, and my God, there are so many things wrong with this car. Well, first of all, for its first fully electric car, Ferrari went with a crossover SUV. As if the world needed another vehicle like this, fully electric. The market is already oversaturated. Visually, there's not much left that resembles a Ferrari, so what's pretty interesting is that Ferrari explained that when designing this car, they mainly focused on maximizing the drag coefficient in order to optimize its performance and range. So first of all, you'll see when we talk about range and performance, it's not impressive, since a Tesla Model 3 actually has a better drag coefficient. And above all, there's nothing on this car that reminds you it's a Ferrari. Honestly, if I said this was a Citroën or Fiat concept car, I think it would have passed without question. What probably explains this is that this car wasn't designed by someone from the automotive world, but by someone from the tech world, since the interior and exterior were designed in collaboration with former designers from the phone and computer brand Apple. So it completely abandons all the proportions and visual identity we know from Ferrari to offer instead a vehicle with a design that's actually pretty generic. A bit like an SUV, a bit like a sedan, a bit like a minivan. Visually, it's quite debatable, but technically the problem with this big Ferrari is probably this. It's completely behind when it comes to being an electric car. It has a huge 122 kW NMC battery, which only gives it 530 kilometers of range. That's not great compared to what most other manufacturers are offering now. A Tesla or even a Peugeot offers more. As for fast charging, we're talking about 350 kWh. So again, well, that's not particularly impressive either. For a car from the Ferrari brand, you would expect something really top of the line, but in reality, a BMW iX3 does better. The performance isn't that great actually for an electric car. 0 to 100 in 2.5 seconds. 1,050 horsepower and a top speed of 310 km/h. Remember just a few years ago, Rimac, a small car brand, offered an electric hypercar that outperformed in every way, and a Tesla Plaid generally outdoes this Ferrari. It's probably because this Ferrari Luce is extremely heavy, 2,300 kilos. The interior is quite unique too. It's true that here, we're really leaving the Ferrari world and actually finding ourselves in the world of an Apple car. It's simple and understated, not as grandiose as Ferrari usually is. Knowing that Ferrari has installed a system in this car that allows the sound of the electric motors to be reproduced inside the cabin. It's an electronic filter that captures engine and motor sounds and vibrations to amplify select frequencies inside the vehicle, and give it a kind of sound that could perhaps vaguely resemble the sound of a combustion engine. The worst part of all this, I'll tell you now, is the price. Because Ferrari is still Ferrari and it's offered at 660,000 euros. It's literally the most expensive regular production model in the current lineup, excluding special editions. So we literally have Ferrari asking its customers to pay more than ever for a car that already, in the eyes of the brand's purists, destroys precisely everything that made Ferrari unique, but is also completely lagging behind technologically. You take any Tesla or any high-end German electric model, which will cost, let's say, 7, 8, 9, 10 times less than this Ferrari, and you get something better in every way. So it's incomprehensible. The only thing that could explain this future disaster that is the Ferrari Luce is maybe that Ferrari is trying to make people hate electric cars. That's my theory in the end. You can't be thinking clearly at Ferrari to release this. By the way, the market's reacted very badly to the announcement of this Ferrari Luce, since Ferrari's stock dropped by 7%. Which usually doesn't happen when a brand unveils a new model. Generally, the brand gains value, but investors may wonder, who will buy this? That might be key to understanding this Ferrari Luce. Maybe Ferrari is trying to turn EV purists off by saying later, well, you see, we tried electric. We didn't sell much. That's why we went back to combustion engines. Maybe. Ferrari is trying to make amends by announcing they'll partially bring back manual gearboxes on their combustion engine cars. We know this because Ferrari is developing a new clutch pedal system for manual gearboxes. This clutch pedal has a unique feature. It's by-wire, meaning there's no mechanical connection to the clutch. There's no cable if you prefer. Basically, it will work a bit like the accelerator pedal in some vehicles. There will be a potentiometer that reacts to the movement of your foot and then sends the information to the gearbox. There will be a kind of spring, a cam, that will be adjusted in real time both mechanically and electronically to simulate the resistance of the pedal, to actually mimic the feel of a real mechanical clutch. That's why many people think this technology could actually be used for new manual gearboxes, but also maybe in the future to simulate gear shifts on electric cars. So let me reassure you, Ferrari is definitely not the only brand that's a bit, well, lost and completely changing direction. It's happening at Renault too. There's something that has worked really well for Renault in recent months: betting on neo-retro, which means bringing back to life models that haven't existed for a long time. The Renault 5, for example, which did really well. The Renault 4, well, which did much less well. It's actually more of a flop, to be honest. But there's also the Twingo, which is getting a lot of interest. It works so well that other brands are now taking inspiration from it. We saw Peugeot with the new 208 talk about a concept that was a bit reminiscent of the 205. And now even Citroën wants to bring back the 205. Renault achieved something rare in the auto industry, making electric cars people liked not for the technology, but for what they represented. The philosophy was simple: accessible, instantly recognizable cars that reconnect people with models from their youth. And while you might think that Renault was about to intensify this approach and bring back to life other iconic models from the brand from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, well, no, it's going to stop. This was confirmed by Arnaud Belloni, who is Renault's global marketing director. He announced that the new generation electric Twingo would be the last model of this retro-futuristic wave. Renault will now pursue new concepts to be revealed at the Paris Motor Show. We don't know what this means or what direction Renault will take. What we do know is that we should stop hoping that Renault will bring back a Laguna, a Safrane, or even a more traditional Espace. And while Renault is abandoning a formula that had finally managed to recreate an emotional connection with drivers, other manufacturers are actually starting to question their entire electric strategy. And now we're going to talk about a cousin of Renault, by the way, Nissan, which until now had a project to invest nearly 100 million euros in the UK to produce electric motors. They plan to make 340,000 per year at Sunderland. It wasn't just for England. It was a Nissan factory with Nissan set to supply electric motors. But not only that, it was also inverters and reduction gears for all Nissan electric models that were to be sold and produced in Europe. But Nissan has a rather particular problem with fully electric vehicles, which is that while sales are increasing a bit everywhere in Europe, slowly but still, at the same time, Nissan's electric car sales have dropped by 22%. That's an extremely bad sign for a brand that had actually been one of the pioneers of this kind of car with the Leaf. As a result, Nissan is abandoning this project and now prefers to continue importing its electric powertrains directly from Japan. Nissan now believes that there simply isn't enough demand for its electric cars to make it worth investing so much to set up a new factory in Europe. And since Nissan is in a rather complicated financial situation, well, now it only invests in what has a chance of selling. While Nissan is doubting its strategy and canceling some projects, over at Stellantis, they're waking up and launching new ones for brands we thought had disappeared. It's almost absurd, but indeed Stellantis is going to relaunch Chrysler, both in the United States and in Europe. Chrysler isn't even distributed in Europe anymore, if I'm not mistaken. It's barely sold anywhere anymore, since in the United States, up until now, there was only one model in the lineup, the Pacifica, which is a minivan. Stellantis wants to relaunch the brand, and for that, instead of focusing on Chrysler's somewhat premium side, they want to focus more on an accessible brand image. Most manufacturers have largely abandoned this segment in recent years, creating an opportunity to capture the market. Chrysler is reportedly preparing two new compact SUVs named Aero and Aero Cross, with prices that could start around 18,000 to 25,000 euros depending on the version. That's almost low cost in today's automotive industry. The idea is to make Chrysler a fairly mainstream brand, which won't have the premium image or the somewhat off-road image that Jeep might have. Alongside that, it would also offer another larger SUV, which would be more upscale and a bit more expensive. In any case, let's keep our fingers crossed for Chrysler so that this comeback doesn't turn out like the return of the Entaya, because that's what's risky when you take the risk of reviving brands that have disappeared for a while. It's extremely long and extremely complicated to make them important again. If there isn't a particularly striking concept or a really incredible reason to buy a vehicle from this brand, instead of a brand that's already well established, well, it just doesn't work. And it's true that betting again on SUVs in a world where there are already only SUVs, I'm not sure that's really the right solution. And that only time will tell. We've covered today's news. I hope you found this little video interesting, even though it's coming out a bit earlier than usual. If that's the case, I'm counting on you to like, subscribe, and maybe support the channel by clicking join. See you tomorrow for the next news video. Bye.